Hey, everyone. Um, my name is Steve Lee. I'm the CEO of a nonprofit tech firm called SkillUp. It has a very simple mission. It's to ensure that all Americans have access to high opportunity employment. Before I go in there, I just want to give a thanks and a shout out to SOAR for the privilege of speaking today. It's my first time in Kentucky, and it's been awesome. So thank you all for your hospitality. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about what the future of work means. Let's see what's going on. All right, but before I talk about work, I want to talk about my favorite subject in the world, which is basketball, something which I think is probably near and dear to the great people of the state. So when I was a child, there was in the 80s, I'm a child of the 80s, there was a sneaker war between the two big kahunas in the day, Adidas and Puma, and this little upstart out of Beaverton, Oregon called Nike, which no one had really heard of. That is until this guy came along, right? The skinny kid from North Carolina changed a narrative. And Nike won the war, lock, stock, and barrel. And every child in America wanted to be like Mike. I wanted to be like Mike. It changed your narrative of how people thought about sneakers. So the reason I bore you with that story is that in the world of work, I feel like there's a similar narrative happening, that it's about skills plus degrees. Now, don't get me wrong, degrees are hugely important. They will always be important. They're the most important factor for folks to move up and out. And yet, more adult Americans do not have a college degree than those who do. And for the past X number of years, they've been shut out of the system. Now there's a narrative happening that's trying to move those folks along. And in the three-sided marketplace of workers, employers, and policymakers, it's really happening. So I work for a group called SkillUp. Our whole jam is to uplift marginalized workers into a better place. There's a national campaign run by one of our partners, Opportunity at Work, called Tear the Paper Ceiling, which is exactly what it sounds like. Rip off the invisible paper ceiling of a degree, and how can you think about skills plus degrees? On the employer side, and it's probably happening in Kentucky, there's a movement where employers are getting rid of the college degree requirement. Big companies like LinkedIn, like IBM, Walmart just announced last week that they're removing college degree requirements for a number of the corporate staff. LinkedIn's data suggests that the biggest search terms, the biggest things that are happening are around skills, in addition to degrees. On the policy side, there are 15 states that have removed college requirements for many state jobs. And in this crude map, you can see they're blue and they're red states. So it's a bipartisan issue. So there's stuff happening, right? Again, let me be clear. This is not about the fact that college degrees are not important, because they are crucially important. But there might be other options for workers across America to get out and above. So what does all this actually mean? So this is a very complicated slide. If you probably have seen the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. It's a kick-ass movie, excuse my language, it's literally, right? It's an awesome movie. So I feel like this is happening in the world of career search. So in the traditional mode of high school to college to career is still important, but the labor market dynamics are shifting how things work. And there are multiple entry points where someone can come in, and there are multiple exit points where someone can leave into that great next career. So think about high schools. Think about a high school student here in Corbin. There might be an opportunity to embed things around career in addition to academics. And by the way, this is happening. There's a push across the country in legislation to push things around careers, right, plus academics within the high school environment. If you're an incumbent worker or you're an unemployed worker, there are multiple opportunities for you to be able to get the right skill sets. right, to be able to drive towards your next career. Even if you have a college degree, in the world of work that we live in now, where it's all about learning environment, there are things that you can do even after you have a college degree to increase your skill set. And so it's a very fluid movement that I think is happening across the country. So the question is, what ties all these things together? If you come in one door and you exit the other door, how do you know, or how does someone know that you got something that is actually worth it and valuable? And so there's a movement across the country, similar to how I think probably many of you have your driver's license on your phone. It's a similar thing happening in the world of work, what's called learning records, where you can get your credentials on your phone as part of your digital wallet. And so if you live here in Kentucky and you move to my home state, New York, you can have your credential on your phone as a validation, right, that you got something worth it for you, no matter where you are in the country. And that stitches things together and allows you to stack credentials, all trusted by a verified source, right, on your phone. So I think that stuff is happening. And then I'd be remiss, because everyone talks about Gen AI. I'm just going to talk about it for a second, which is what's important for Gen AI in the world of work is it allows you to target in a very precise way the population that you want to serve, right? So we at SkillUp, we can target a high school kid, an incumbent worker, a college grad, based on the data that's out there, and provide meaningful opportunities that's precise to an individual. And that's really, really powerful for a group like us. So let me end by saying a couple things. One, for the folks who are part of this ecosystem, if you're a student, college student, high school student, there are opportunities that may exist for you heretofore that you just didn't know about. And there's more stuff happening around that world. If you're an education provider, and I know there are folks in the room who are, you all need to change to what the marketplace is saying. And I know the great folks here in Kentucky are doing that. If you're an employer, right, tear that paper ceiling, right? Allow the ability for folks where skills are just as important as degrees. And if you're a policymaker here in the state of Kentucky, maybe Kentucky, you all can be the 16th state, right, that removes college requirements, right, for state jobs. And I think the last thing I'll say is this stuff is really hard, right? There are lots of tailwinds pushing in this direction, but there are a lot of headwinds that make it very difficult. And one headwind is just the employer space. For decades, as you all know, employers have been driven by a certain way of working, and that's really, really hard to change. But employers are doing more. They're beginning to tear sort of, this idea of tear the paper ceiling. And so more and more stuff is happening like this. It's a slow burn. Even Michael Jordan didn't win the NBA title until the 7th season, right? So we're still early stages. But I feel like the great people in the state will start tearing that paper ceiling and provide opportunities that heretofore didn't exist around skills, right, in addition to degrees. Thank you all very much for your time, for your hospitality. It's been awesome. Cheers.